Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Town Council for Thursday, March 10th to order. If you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. That was our call and pledge announcements. Our upcoming town council meetings are Thursday, March 24th at 7 o'clock and Thursday, April 14th at 7 o'clock here in this room. And then as an important date to remember, Tuesday, April 12th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. will be our ballot vote/voting day at your designated polling place. If you haven't voted recently and you don't know your voting place, you can look up on the website under the Town Clerk Tax Collector's Office. There's a link to the Secretary of State's office, which will tell you once you put in your address where your precinct is. Otherwise, we're going to be voting at St. John Newman Church, the middle school. What's the name of that? Merrimack Middle School. Yeah. And then at JMU's, the place that used to be our only voting place, where we just had our deliberative session, so all the folks that were there know exactly where it is. Not very many. We did have our deliberative session last night. It was sparsely attended, but it went well. Paul, do you have any other announcements?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Department of Health, with their partner Convenient MD and the town of Merrimack, are working together to provide a COVID vaccination clinic on Wednesday, March 16th, from 3 to 5 p.m. at John O'Leary Adult Community Center. All vaccines and vaccinations and boosters will be available for ages 5 and up. Appointments are available by calling 603-420-1440 or emailing welfare@merrimacknh.gov. Once again, that's welfare@merrimacknh.gov. Also,
Can you say that number again?
Yes, 603-420-1440.
Oh, I thought you said 11440, and it just was too many digits.
I might have.
Oh, okay.
Walk-in appointments will also be welcomed at the clinic. 2022 dog license are due by April 30th. Per New Hampshire state law, all owners of dogs 4 months and older are required to license their dog by May 1st. Owners must present a valid rabies certificate and a neutering or spading certificate if applicable. Dog owners who fail to register the dog by May 1st will be required to pay a late charge and a $30 civil forfeiture fine. A court summons may be issued for each unlicensed dog. A court summonses may be issued for failure to license. Licenses are available at the town clerk's office during normal business hours of 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. License renewals can also be completed by using the online payment services at www.merrimacknh.gov, by mail, or by using the Dropbox. You can also see licensing instructions on the town clerk section of the website. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Comments from the press and public? Not seeing anybody. We'll move on. We have no recognitions, resignations, or retirements, the triple R's. And we have no special appointments for tonight, so we'll move into the public hearing. We're having a public hearing for consideration of changes to Chapter 178, taxation of the Merrimack Town Code. This was submitted by the Town Council Chair Tom Koenig and Vice Chair Finley Rothaus. The Town Council to hold a public hearing to consider the acceptance of recommended changes to the Article 2 elderly tax exemptions of Chapter 178, taxation of the Merrimack Town Code pursuant to Charter Article 5. Paul, do you want to introduce this at all? Or?
Yes. We started the process on Chapter 178 taxation, Article 2, elderly tax exemptions. The elderly exemptions from property tax in the town of Merrimack is based on assessed value. We're looking at increasing for persons ages 65 to age 75, from $75 to 75,000 to 85,000. A person from 75 years of age up to 80 years of age, from 100,000 to 115,000, and a person 80 years of age or older, 125 from 125,000 to $150,000. All income limits will stay as presented in prior ordinances, which is taxpayers must have a net income of less than 45,000, or if married, joint income of less than $60,000, and net assets not in excess of $200,000, excluding their value of personal property.
Okay. So we'll open the hearing at 7:07 and ask if anybody in the public wants to make a comment or suggestion or whatever to please come up to the microphone. Do I have to wait for it to take over? We're gonna see if there's anybody in the council that has any comments at this point, while we're waiting to see if there's any public. Anybody else have thoughts? 7:08, we're gonna close the public hearing and see what the pleasure of the council is at this point. Nancy?
I'd like to move this this acceptance of recommended changes to the Article 2 elderly tax exemptions to the third reading and place it on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Nancy, seconded by Barbara, because she made noise. Well, you just waved at me. I did. If there's no further comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. That brings us to legislative updates from state reps. I don't have my phone, so I don't know if we got anything.
I didn't get
You didn't get anything, so
They were busy today.
they were,
That's right.
Oh,
they
that's
were
right,
back
they
in
had
the
a session
State House,
today,
That's
huh?
right.
seeing nobody in the audience, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One item on my town manager's report is that I'd like to update the town council on the nepotism policy that we've been trying to work through with the fire department. And I am happy to say that we have come to agreement and we have 2 signed MOUs on nepotism. So we will be moving forward with a couple of the candidates that are on the list now that are relatives to, in the fire department, to see if they're still interested for the positions that we have open. But I want to thank both the IAFF union and the supervisors union to working and trying to get this accomplished. But we got it accomplished. It was a long road, but we got it accomplished, so.
Great.
Great. Is that it? That's it. Any questions for the town manager's report? Saying none. We have no consent agenda tonight. Brings us to old business. First, under old business, because we have to do this in somewhat of an order. Reconsideration of use of ARPA funds and Merrimack Fire Rescue ladder truck purchase, submitted by the town manager, Paul McCallie. The town council to discuss the utilization of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds for the purchase of a new fire rescue ladder truck. However, do we have to do the other routine things first?
Yes,
First things first?
procedurally, since last July, July 15th, the council used some of the ARPA money and put it towards a screenings building. And as you know, as of last night with that presentation, we have, because of the cost of the screenings building, we have decided to move the screenings building into the bond, Phase 5 bond. So what needs to be done is that a vote of reconsideration would need to be done for removing that award or that appropriation for the screenings building. The issue is that we at town council and through the charter follow Robert's Rules of Order. And Robert's Rules of Order says that a reconsideration happens either at the next meeting or within 1 calendar year. Now, what exactly is 1 calendar year? Some people say it runs from January to December. Other people say it runs from July to June when the vote was taken. Spoke to the attorney, and he thought it would be best that if the council would have to suspend Robert's Rules of Order, and basically there's a sample motion is, I move that the council vote to suspend section 704 of the council rules of procedure to allow reconsideration of a prior vote that would not otherwise be allowed. A suspension of the rules is allowed by majority vote pursuant to section 1000. So that would be a sample that would need to be done to suspend the rules. Then we could do a reconsideration on that motion from July. And then once that reconsideration is done, then you can actually allot or allocate the $1.5 million for the purchase of the ladder truck.
So did anybody want to make that motion that Paul just
So
read?
moved.
Actually, if I could,
Oh,
I
go
just
ahead.
had a question first, I'm sorry. Okay, we kind of follow Robert's rules, but I thought in the charter it specifically spoke to reconsideration being by the next meeting or what have you, and so,
We'd be suspending the charter rules, you mean?
you're right, so I didn't know if, as a regular agenda item, we just say, hey, we're changing our mind, if that's what we did, if that's what we're going to do, and do it as as opposed to reconsideration, I guess.
Excuse me. I asked that question to our legal advisors, and they said this would be one of the easiest and best ways to do this. Suspend
Okay.
the rules, take up the reconsideration.
And
As
then
you know,
reallocate.
in the agenda item, it does say that basically reconsideration use of ARPA funds in the Merrimack Fire Rescue Truck. So we did label it that way, that if anybody is sitting at home, they would know what the council was trying to do. So we'd have to suspend the rule, take a reconsideration vote, and then go about it, because it's already been allocated.
So you're right, the charter does say that, but this motion suspends the charter rule,
Suspends the council rules of procedure
right?
Right.
in section 704.
That's how I understand it.
Right.
That's,
Then that's,
but you're right.
I'm
Phil.
fine,
Okay.
I'm fine with it, I just.
yeah.
But you're right, it was.
Because I
yes,
said,
you're right.
I was thinking along your lines, is we had to put it on an agenda item, take it up. He said you can do it this way by suspending it, then you can do a reconsideration, take the vote, and then move forward.
Very
It
good.
does the same,
Same
and
effect.
end game is the same, it's just
It's cleaner.
cleaner.
Bless
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so a motion by
So I'm
Nancy
going
to
to
suspend the
move,
council
as read
rules.
by
by
Town
Paul.
Manager Paul McKelly.
Is there a second?
Second?
Nancy Murphy. Any other questions about it? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That's 700. So we've suspended the rules, which would allow us to reconsider if someone wanted to make a motion to do so.
Which is the other second.
The second one, Nancy Murphy?
I move the council to reconsider its vote of July 15th, 2021, dedicating $2,327,764 of available ARPA monies for the sewer screening building expansion. Passage of this motion to reconsider will rescind the dedication of ARPA funds as voted by the council on July 15th, 2021.
Second. Motion by Nancy Murphy, seconded by Andy Hunter. And as I understand this motion, it's kind of twofold. It's suspending and,
Yes,
it's reconsidering and rescinding all in one vote.
correct.
Any questions by anybody on the council? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed or abstaining? 700. Now, we've talked about acquiring the ladder truck. Chief, do you have anything to add to the discussion on the ladder truck? Okay. He indicated no.
You indicated no? All right, well, I'll talk then.
Oh,
So I asked the chief to get, in your packets, I asked the chief to go back to talk to the vendor of the ladder truck to make sure that we're not gonna get hit with a, hey, it's not $1.5 million anymore, it's $17 million. So he went and got a letter basically from the company stating that, yes, the price of the truck would be for $1,473,994. There's a prepayment discount of $40,724. The chief is asking for the 1.5 because we'd have to outfit some of the equipment on the truck that we cannot move from our 20-year-old ladder truck forward, such as our jaws of life and things of that sort. They would have to be purchased new. So he's asking for the $1.5 million to be able to do that as well. And the other thing is that what we would do is we'd put our name in, sign off, be put in the build list. And the build list is 14 to 15 months on these. However, there are demos that come off the line periodically, and we'd be telling the company that if there's a demo available, that if we can get the truck sooner, we would. And the chief can kind of speak to the difference between a demo and what we might want to purchase. And I think one of the big things is in the front end, on the axle on the front end.
Yeah, so fortunately today, we happen to have the Vice President of Sales come out from Pierce to talk to us about some other issues, and we asked about the ladder truck. And from what my understanding is, after speaking with him, we will put a truck together and build out what we'd like. We will get in the queue. The sooner we can do that, the better. The next price increase is May 1st. So we're on a very tight timeline to get this accomplished. Once we sign the contract that this is the truck we want, it meets all the specifications that we've designed, the price is locked in. I asked the question, with inflation and everything else going out of control, what happens if costs increase in, let's say, 6 months and it goes up by 12%? They indicated and confirmed that the price increase will not have any effect on what we sign. So if we sign for the 1.4 or whatever the final number is, that will be the price of the truck that we pay. Now, if we decide to look at some of the other trucks that are demonstration type trucks that are coming off the line, we will have the opportunity to look at those. However, those demo trucks come with some options that we probably will not spec in the truck that we're going to build. One of those is a suspension system that's a very high cost, and it's a good suspension system, but it costs a lot of money. So we'd be very close to the 1.5, if not over the 1.5, if we decide to take one of those trucks. The other thing that we learned was, even if the truck met some of the budget items that we're working with, because Pierce would want to use the truck as a demonstration model truck, we wouldn't get it right away. So the 14-month, even though the truck comes off, let's say in August, they may want to keep it for a couple months to do demonstrations for different dealerships. We might not see the truck for another 3 or 4 months. So then now we're really only 3 or 4 months away from getting the truck that we wanted. So there are a lot of moving factors as we go forward with this, and we will certainly investigate all of our options as we go forward, and we will make sure that we, select the best option for us as we go forward. And it may be waiting the 14 months to get the truck that we put together and spec'd out for us. But that's, as of today, that's the latest and greatest information straight from the Vice President of Sales from the dealership that we're working with, Allegiance Fire Rescue. So does that help?
No. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that. I guess when we discussed this a month ago, it seemed like there was a much
Right.
better opportunity of getting a demo off the line in 2 or 3 months, not 6 or 7 months.
Right. Well, there are trucks that are coming off. So in August, there may be one. But again, from what we learned today, because they're such hot commodities and people are in the same situation that we're in, they are going faster than they can make them. So things have changed over the last month or two since we started putting this together. So conditions in the market have certainly changed a lot of things. And even the dealership has said that they've never seen anything quite like this.
So
It's just crazy.
if you don't mind my asking, the 1.473994 number minus the $40,000 discount buys what? If you haven't even spec'd the truck yet, how can we get a number on that?
Well, from what we've guesstimated already with some of the ideas and thoughts that the staff has already had, that's the number that we've chosen. Now, we will finalize that next week, but we all know what our final number needs to be. It needs to be 1.5 less. It cannot be any more than that. So we will work very diligently to make sure that we do not, again, and I know we wouldn't, the truck will not have anything extra that we don't need on the truck, so I know the staff will do
No,
a
I
great job.
understand that. I appreciate that. Barbara Healy?
So when do you have to give them full payment on delivery? Because this changes everything that we talked about last time.
Right. To be honest, I don't know when we have to give full payment. I can certainly ask that question, but the town manager may know more than I.
Because now we're balancing.
Because I think we did this before with the two
We've
engines.
done this before. What we do is to get the $47,000, we do a prepayment bond with them. So we pay them the cash up front to build the truck, and they give us in turn a bond that says if they don't perform or if they go out of business, we take this bond and we're able to move it on to the next company and buy a truck with it. So basically, we need to pay cash up front to get that cash discount of $47,000. So we'd pay them like we have with the two trucks that we bought. We wrote a check for, I believe, right around $1 million to them up front. We paid them up front, got a bond that says if we go out of business, here's the money. So we're protected that way. But to get the cash discount, that's what they want. They want the money up front.
And the cost of that money for 14 months is relatively low because interest rates are so low,
Yeah.
lower than the $40,000 That's not a very big discount on
No.
1.4 million, so.
No, but you know, we're not going to get $40,000 worth of interest. We haven't been getting $40,000 in a year in interest with all our,
Trust funds. and
trust funds.
capital
Not trust funds, but all
All of our
our
capital
capital,
reserve funds.
our money. So it's wise to go
Still
ahead and
better
do
off.
that. Right. And even if the interest rates go up, they would have to go up to where they were 3-4 years ago, where there were 2.5-3% for us to make that kind of money on $1,400,000.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. So we're looking at, yes.
Unless someone else wants to do it. I move to fund the acquisition of a ladder truck for the fire department in the amount of $1,500,000 out of the ARPA funds available to the town.
Second. Motion's made by Nancy Harrington, seconded by Andy Hunter. Is there any discussion?
No, I think we're a little disappointed in terms of the speed, but it is what it is. And we still have a possibility, depending upon what demos come out and whether it fits the criteria we need to have. Regardless, we need one. So whether it be 6 months or 15 months, it is what it is.
Right.
Words of wisdom.
Heard that somewhere before. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to spend 1.5 million for a new ladder truck, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. Thank you, Chief.
I just wanted to say thank you for your investment in our department. It certainly means a lot. They know we'll take it seriously when we put this thing together and get
Yeah,
the town
please
what
get
it
that
really
order
needs.
in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Chief. Yep.
So what are we doing about the wastewater treatment facility? Or are we going to talk about that when we go through Sarita's slide
That's-
decks?
That's the Coronation Building. We have a plan for that. I made a promise on the 10th of February that we'd find the money to be able to do that, and we've come up with a solution to find the money so that we're able to do that. So we have a presentation, and we have a couple gentlemen in the audience to help with the discussion as well.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of that, we're going to move item number 2 to the end of the list because we do have guests and we want to go ahead and get to the item number 3, chlorination building upgrades discussion at this point. Thank you, Chief. So we'll take up item number 3 now. Chlorination building upgrades submitted by the Public Works Department, wastewater Assistant Director Sarita Croce and Town Manager Paul McCallie. Suddenly I couldn't see, sorry. The Town Council to get an update on the chlorination building upgrade and to request funds from the ARPA and Wastewater Infrastructure Capital Reserve Fund. Paul, do you want to say something before Sarita jumps in, or?
I'll let Sarita do most of the talking, because I've done a lot of talking in the last 2 days. But I do want to reiterate that on February 10th, I sat where Sarita was sitting, and I made a promise to the council and to the town of Merrimack that we'd come up with a way to be able to build this building and fund it. It's a 3-prong approach in the funding scheme, using ARPA money, using some money that we had set aside with the phase 3 and phase 4 bond that we were going to use for the chlorination building, and some capital reserve funds. But we did come up with the total amount that we need to get this project done, if the council so chooses, to move and allow us to use the remaining balance of the ARPA fund for helping out in this Coronation Building, which is one of the last pieces of the puzzle. You know, we did phase 3, we did phase 4. Last night we talked about phase 5. This is one of the last pieces of the puzzle. This and the sawdust shed is the last 2 pieces of the puzzle. And then we should be pretty good for a while, I hope.
I hope.
Yeah,
I hope.
another 50 years, we hope.
It'll be
Yeah.
a different council, though, happy to
Probably a different director of public work, of wastewater treatment, too.
50 years from now, yeah, I think so. Definitely. So thank you, Chairman Koenig, Vice Chair Rothaus, and members of the Town Council for allowing me to present our plan for the chlorination building upgrade. So with me tonight, I have Tim Vadney, who is with Wright Pierce, and he's actually the professional engineer of record on this project. Next to him is Joe Maloof, who is a project manager from Methuen Construction, who is been doing a lot of work on this project. I just want to say before I get started that I've worked on a lot of projects in my career. I've worked on projects that cost upwards of $1 billion to execute. And the group that you have, or we have, working on this project is the finest group I've ever worked with. I think what amazes me about both Wright Pierce and Methuen is their commitment to the town. They care just as deeply as I do about what happens at the wastewater treatment plant and the town. And when we have issues and emergencies that come up, they're all over it. One other person who's sitting in the audience is Casey Simons, and he is the project engineer on the project. So he does a great job as well, and it's an incredible team, and we're very lucky to have them. So what I'd like to talk about tonight, I think we've talked about this bid price and this budget a lot, so I'm going to spend like 5 seconds on that part of it, and then we'll jump right into the chlorination building, why we want to do it, the cost. Joe is going to actually go into some of the details associated with the cost, just to help everyone understand why now is a really good idea to execute this project versus waiting for a later date. And then, as always, well, of course, I'm going to be asking for money. When don't I?
Of course.
And then, as always, we're always welcome to answer any questions or have any discussions on the information that we're presenting to you this evening. So I think we've all spent a lot of time with the $22.62 million, which is the loan amount that we secured as part of the Phase 3, Phase 4 upgrade. Well, the unencumbered loan balance for the Phase 3, Phase 4 project is $300,020 that we were planning to use, that we were and are planning to use for the chlorination building. So this was always the intent of this extra money. Now, before I get into the discussion, I'm actually going to hand off this discussion now to Tim Vadney. But before I get into that discussion, I want to just let everybody know that even though we started in an upgrade, we've actually had situations occur where we've had basically complete failure of equipment at the plant site. And as a result of that, we've had to do some emergency equipment installation. And we're actually quite lucky that we're executing this project. And in the cases of these emergency failures or these failures, we had the equipment on site so we could change course very quickly. It involves a call to pretty much Joe and Tim at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, because nothing ever happens between the hours of 8 and 3, to tell them that we really need to change course. And we're able to do that because the equipment is here. So it's something I want you to keep in mind as Tim talks about the chlorination building.
Thank you. As Rita mentioned, I'm Tim Vadney with Wright Pierce, project manager for this project, and I'll just give some brief background on what the equipment, the critical equipment that's within the chlorination building is. So the two major components are the return activated sludge pumps, which are kind of the circulatory system of a wastewater plant. They move sludge from one place to another, and are very, very important for the process and for the maintenance, complying with your NIPDES permit. And the second piece is all the electrical infrastructure that powers that, the motor control centers, or MCCs. All of this equipment has been in for nigh on 40 years. There's been some motor replacements on the RAS pumps, but the RAS pump, rotating assembly, volute impeller, and bearing frame are all original, 40 years old. The MCCs are well beyond their useful life. We're really on borrowed time, and I tip my hat to Sarita and her operational staff that they've been able to keep this equipment running for much longer than I see it run at many other plants. It truly, at this point, and my understanding is that, and Sarita can speak to this, that finding spare parts for this equipment is a matter of the secondhand market in many cases, because it's all legacy equipment that's no longer supported. So also the associated piping and valving with these return activated sludge or RAS pumps is, some of it I believe is original to the facility. It's Lyndon B. Johnson was president when it was installed, if that gives some perspective on that. So yeah, if these pumps go down, we basically can't treat wastewater until we come up with a means to convey this sludge from point A to point B, in actually a litany of places we need to convey it, both waste-activated sludge and return-activated sludge. So if these pumps go down, we're out of the wastewater treatment business until we can procure and install rental pumps and piping, which is not overnight, especially in the current global economy that Joe will speak to in terms of the availability of stuff like that right now. So I won't harp on it too much, other than to say that these pumps you've gotten your money's worth from them, and they're on borrowed time. So with that, included within this upgrade, as I mentioned, a replacement of all 4 return activated sludge pumps. Now these pumps, there's 4, 3 of them need to be running at any time. So we have what's called a standby pump as well. The upsizing of the return activated sludge yard piping to support that growth that's already occurred within town and for future permit limits. Some of that piping that conveys the sludge, the buried piping within the yard, is going to need to be upsized. This does that work. This replaces the motor control centers, or MCCs, that power this equipment, and all the conduit and wire and breakers and all the other associated appurtenances that power this equipment. And lastly, as we mentioned, the building envelope itself is quite dated and in need of some miscellaneous structural repairs and other architectural repairs that would be occurring as part of this upgrade. So with that, I will turn it over to Joe to speak a little bit to some of the costs and, with that, Joe.
Yep, yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon. I'm Joe Maloof. I'm the project manager for Methuen Construction on the project. I'll just run down the line items that we have on those slides in front of you, and I'll go through what's included in the cost and then also some of the benefits of doing the work now as opposed to later. So on the first one, our site work, that's really the underground utility work, the yard piping work that Tim was just referencing, the duct banks, the rebar, the concrete. And really it's twofold, some of the benefits you're going to get from that. The first one, on the cost side, we already have all of our heavy equipment mobilized to the job site doing underground utility work in various areas of the plant. This would save the cost of remobilizing equipment at a later date. And then there's also a risk reduction factor there, because whoever's going to be doing the chlorination building in the future, if we don't do it now, we'll be digging around utilities that we're putting in at this time. So you're getting a cost reduction and you're getting a risk reduction factor. On the miscellaneous metals work, we all know whether we're going to the pump and seeing the inflation or whether we're dealing with availability of buying a couch that takes 5 months to get to the house. Steel is a commodity that's increasing like crazy right now. Nothing's available. This gives us the opportunity to lock in that pricing on the steel and on various other commodities to protect the town's interests against future inflation and price escalations. The mechanical work is really at the heart of the upgrade. That's the pumps, the piping, the gauges, the valves. And really we have 2 benefits here because we're already on site. The first one is a cost benefit. We've been able to pre-negotiate a lot of contracts with suppliers that are supplying pipe and valves in other buildings. So we have locked in pricing, for example, on the RAS pumps that's over a year old, well under what the market value is now. And then we're also reducing the overall time frame because we've already submitted a lot of that technical documentation to Wright Pierce on piping and valves that are being utilized elsewhere that we can use similar equipment in this area. The electrical work is a great example of the inflation that we've been seeing in the construction industry. Just a quick example, PVC pipe has gone up from $3 a foot to about $13 a foot. It's a 400% increase, and we don't really see that reversing course anytime soon. And then the final point, the extended general conditions. This is where the most value is to the town right now. Extended general conditions, that's the cost that the contractor needs to spend to staff their project with management personnel, superintendents, project engineers, project managers. And the overall duration of the chlorination building work is about 13 to 15 months. Because we're already on site for the majority of that, we only need to charge the last 5 months of general conditions where we're extending past where we would be if we were just completing the work we already have. So if you take 15 months times that $66,000, you can see that if we were bidding this job separately, or if another contractor were bidding it, that's likely to be hundreds of thousands of dollars higher than it is now. So in short, we feel confident this is a very competitive price and that it would only go up in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions at this point? I thought it was kind of humorous that number 2, a handrail, is $14,000. I presume you mean more than just something you might see on the side of a stairwell.
That's correct.
Example, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I did
Yo, go ahead. yeah.
I mean, we've experienced, as you guys all know, when I thought we would get this done in a few phases, it's turned into this lingering thing that continues to grow. Are we confident by these things getting locked in, we're not gonna have to come back for a phase 6?
Who wants to take that?
So I've said this before, like your house, if you put on an asphalt roof every 20 years or 25 years, you've got to replace that roof. In terms of the original infrastructure, we will have, when we finish this Phase 5 project, have replaced the original infrastructure at the facility. And that's an important thing at this point, because to what everybody's saying here, we can't find, it's not an issue of the aftermarket, we can't find the spare parts. We are now at this point where we're actually going out in some cases to have things built for us. And that costs significantly more than it would to maintain a brand-new facility. But the original infrastructure will be replaced, so I wouldn't be coming back to you for any money to replace original infrastructure.
And I appreciate that, and I'm with the project. I'm all in at this point. I can't turn back, and so, for me. But do I have to worry about, this growing even further over the next 4 or 5 months? That's what I mean.
It's a tough question. It's a very good question. It's like you're never done spending money on your house. A wastewater plant is much the same way. It's an ongoing investment. That said, as Sarita touched upon, we're very confident that all of the original equipment will be covered under this upgrade. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
You notice they didn't guarantee anything.
Yeah, you never know what it.
No, it's.
Like in a new house, you can still have a problem.
Yeah.
It's consumed. I mean, the difficulty, and so far, I personally have dodged a bullet. I haven't heard much about it, but when we're doing this in the beginning, we're gonna get it done in a couple, in the 2 bonds over the course of 2 years, and all of a sudden we're going, no, we're very short, and I can appreciate how the market is. I mean, I witnessed it in my own line of work, so not to the great degree that you guys have it, but that's my fear, is that we do have another phase 6 just to complete what our original infrastructure that is in right now.
So one thing I want to point out, that we actually started this whole process of upgrading the wastewater treatment plant back in 2006. That's when we started with all the phases, and we did an engineering study back then. And at that time, when we had done the engineering study, the cost to upgrade the plant was underestimated, significantly underestimated. And that's what kind of led us to all of these different phases. So we did a phase 1, we realized, whoa, we don't have enough money, so now we've got to go and do a phase 2. Well, in phase 2, we had all the intentions of doing everything and getting everything done. But when we went to the phase 2, again, the same thing happens. And one of the things that might contribute to it is when you do a preliminary engineering, we completed the preliminary engineering in 2019. We went to bid in 2020. So 2019, October to 2020, things can happen, and we started construction in July of 2020. So with every project, there's actually a lag between the time that you complete the engineering, the draft preliminary engineering report, and going to final design, and then going to construction. And I think that is some of the reason why we have kind of been behind the 8 ball a little bit. When we do those estimates, everybody makes their best guess, and I think with the last one, it ended up being about 35% off, based on what the inflation rate and the current condition of the economy was when we went to bid. You want to add anything?
No, that covers it quite well.
Okay.
It's just, I saw it originally with our, with our highway garage, which we did 4 years ago, I think. And I watched right out of the gate, I mean, we're behind in our site work, I guess it was, the excavation component. We were off, we figured 250 and it came in at 650, something to that effect. And I'm going, I don't know if it's because we want to keep it low in our minds when we're putting these things together, but it's a habit that we have to try and figure out how to correct, I think, for the future. Not for tonight's conversation, I just had to put it out there.
Nope, agreed.
Maybe we automatically overestimate.
Well, I
Whatever
mean, we
bid
put
get, we'll just
contingencies in, we
add.
put in all kinds of things, but it never seems to be
It's
nearly
enough.
enough, because nobody's gonna believe that it's gonna be another 35% beyond that at the time, and
Oh,
that's
I was shocked.
frustrating, we have to fix. And then we end up here shocked afterwards, but I guess the slight difference here is that in those, you were doing your estimating up to a year in advance of quoting. Here, we have a quote already, engineering's already been done, so we're not talking about waiting 6 months or whatever to get that out to people, to get them to bid on it. So this number should be solid to get this much done, and you're not holding anything in your back pocket that, well, we have to get this filtration system done as well, or something like that, because that's now all been done.
Do you want to speak to the estimate being solid?
Yeah, I mean, this estimate is a price that we've put forth for the work, and once we get a signed change order for it, we own getting the work done.
And the advantage is you're already there.
Correct.
Okay. And you're able and willing and all that to move forward with it. You're not gonna say, oh, well, somebody came in and we have to pull them out of here.
Casey will be working on it right away.
Very good.
Okay, Barbara?
So yeah, that was gonna be my question. If we approve this tonight, when's your implementation date?
We have, most of our submittals are already ready to go. We would be cutting purchase orders to our vendors immediately.
Okay. No 35%?
Any other comments? Lon? No, okay.
Is there more to the presentation?
I was gonna let them
There's
go
one more
ahead.
slide, yep. I just want to make sure we answered all the questions first. Are we good?
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm therefore respectfully requesting the town council to approve the chlorine building project at a cost of $2,034,568, utilizing the following funds: $1,273,229 from the town of Merrimack, ARPA, $320,020 from the existing Phase 3, Phase 4 SRF loan that had already been allocated for the chlorination building, and a withdrawal from the wastewater infrastructure CRF fund in the amount of $461,319.
Very good.
Okay. Andy?
So, for the ARPA funds, we rescinded or revised the original 2.327. We took that and we gave the fire department 1.5 million, which leaves a balance of 827K. And here we're talking about giving 1.2. Where does that delta come from?
Because we had some money left over from the ARPA. We got about 2.7, almost $2.8 million in ARPA money.
Okay, so the original 2.3 that we allocated to
Was
this
not the whole
project
amount.
Was not the
nothing.
full amount. We still had
Okay.
about 400,000, 400.
And then, second question, do we know what the balance is of the wastewater infrastructure CRF once we withdraw this 461K?
Oh,
Oh,
ew.
I'm sorry, Lon. I stole Lon's question. That was Lon's question.
Well, you can answer
So Councilor
one.
Woods and Councilor Hunter, the answer to your questions is that it's going to be around $600,000 to $700,000
Remaining.
remaining
Okay,
after.
perfect. Thank you.
Barbara?
And does that number include the $500,000 that's going into the CRF? With this
With the
budget?
upcoming vote, you mean?
Yeah,
Shouldn't.
The upcoming meeting,
Well-
the one that hasn't been voted on, the ones being
Right.
voted on
Yeah,
in April?
yeah.
No, it does not.
okay,
Does not.
okay.
Finley?
Is there any type of negative impact to what is in our, our plans, our
CIP.
future plans?
Yeah.
What type of negative impact are we anticipating?
There'll be some minor equipment that might have to be pushed out, a little bit, maybe a year, but not significant. I know we had a loader purchase coming up. We might have to push the loader purchase out for a year. But then again, we got some unbelievable used pieces of equipment. We got 2 John Deeres that were used, a 2014 and 2015.
Yeah, 2014, I thought it was a 2015.
Yes.
And we
But-
saved, what, 50%?
Yeah, so we had some savings from while we were doing that, but if we have to push them out a year, we still have. They're still in great shape because we bought them with low hours on them so that we can use them. So, we might have to push them out a year on the replacement schedule. So nothing will be significantly adjusted, where we're gonna have to move something out 2, 3, 5 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion for Sarita's request?
I'll do it then. To move things along. I would like to make a motion to approve the requested funds from, do you want me to read the exact amounts as listed on the,
You can say as presented.
as presented on page 9?
And what we'll do is we'll put them in the minutes.
Perfect. Which
Seconded
will
by,
allocate the specifics, the source and how much.
Correct.
Very good.
seconded by Finley. So a motion by Nancy Harrington, seconded by Finley to approve the request for $2,034,568 per the allocation request. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. Thanks for all your hard work and in the past. This went actually a lot easier than it might have been otherwise to spend that kind of money.
I'm so
But-
sorry, I keep coming back.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be said, Sarita, again, how lucky we are to have you. I think we need to acknowledge that again.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Between you and the staff and support people
Oh,
that you've been
yeah.
able to pull in, including contractors and whatnot, that's been very beneficial to us.
We have a remarkable staff also at the wastewater treatment
Right.
plant. One of the most recent issues that we had occurred last Thursday, and I've got staff working pretty much around the clock to try and address some of the issues. But they have such an incredible commitment to the town, to the wastewater treatment plant, and they just believe in what they do. It matters because they know that what they do produces clean water. And even though it sounds corny, it matters to these people because they feel like they do something so important, and they do. So I appreciate it.
And
Good.
hopefully they appreciate our recognition of that
Oh, they do,
by being able to upgrade what needs to be done.
absolutely.
So,
I think all of them would love to see you come and take a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, so anytime.
When it's completed.
When your
well,
upgrades are
maybe
done.
we could appreciate the before and after too.
No, some people don't like to come. They say it kind of smells funky, so I don't smell anything, but gotta tell
You're
you.
just used to it, that's all.
Actually, just a real quick wastewater plant story. Back 20 years ago, there was a delegation of folks from Ukraine that Dean Shankel had invited over, and they had 3 tours. They toured the Fidelity operations, they toured Anheuser-Busch, and they toured the sewer plant. And the sewer plant was just before lunch at Anheuser-Busch, and we go walking in to the compost facility, the processing plant, and they said, "Okay, we can go now." We spent no time at wastewater, and we just gotten awards and everything, so we were proud of it for sure. But
So the odors aren't quite as bad
That's
anymore.
correct, yeah.
So we've done things at the wastewater treatment plant to kind of like curtail some of it. The truth is, I don't smell it, and when you work there for a while, you don't. But I don't think it's too bad. Do you think it's? I don't think it's too bad.
It's got its days.
Well, we have been saved as a town from driving by there and first getting the you know, the boiling of the kettles at Anheuser-Busch and then running into the sewer plant as the wind would blow our way occasionally.
I
but-
don't live far,
It
and
doesn't-
that's true.
Yeah, it doesn't
I'd
do it
smell
anymore
the
'cause of
hops, and then
work
I'd
we do.
smell the sewer.
Yeah.
Only on certain days when the wind came a certain direction.
It's always got to be a perfect, storm.
That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There you
So,
go.
case in point about the dedication of staff. Kyle, we had an audit of our plant by New Hampshire DES. And it came back clean, no findings. And I was talking to Sarita, and basically I said, I didn't expect anything less. Because I know that the plant is well taken care of, and the guys who work there are dedicated. So I would not, even when they were coming out, I didn't expect any
reservations.
findings. I had no reservations of it coming through, so it's Sarita and her crew's dedication and hard work. They have a very good crew.
Very good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, gentlemen.
So we ready to go on to number 4?
Yes.
Okay, so, pardon? Oh, boy. Number 4 is a sawdust shed demolition, submitted by Public Works Department / wastewater Assistant Director Sarita Croce. The town council to be presented with the information on the cost to replace the existing sawdust shed and to request the withdrawal of $40,000 from the wastewater infrastructure capital reserve fund for the demolition of the existing sawdust shed. Isn't that where we just took money out of?
Yes. Yes.
Just checking.
So, coming before the council, I would want to say a couple of things about the sawdust shed that I affectionately was calling the salt shed last time. Basically, the sawdust shed is condemned. It's old. The roof, half the roof is gone, as you'll see. Our insurance provider, Primex, came in and basically told us to stop running vehicles in and out of there. And if you want to keep doing it, you can, but if a vehicle or a person gets hurt or damaged, we're not paying for it. Basically, they condemned the building. I believe Wright Pierce also has since then condemned the building. Structurally, it suited its purpose at the time. However, when you have big loaders coming in with a bucket and trying to pick stuff up, pushing against wooden walls, the loader's going to win 99% of the time. So with that, I'll let Sarita go through the cost of a brand-new sawdust shed.
So, yeah, we'd like to talk about the sawdust shed building. It's not really a shed, it's quite large. Talk a little bit about the cost to replace it. There's been a change in the estimate to demolish it from Methuen, and so Joe will talk about that a little bit, so it's less. And then as always, any questions or discussions. I'm actually going to hand this right over to Tim because it was his team that in 2019 actually condemned the shed.
Yes. So I think my structural engineer nearly had a heart attack on the. So the shed, for those of you who've been to the plant, is actually quite large. As Sarita said, it's what, 100 by 30 feet pole barn structure, very.
So it's 200 by 40.
200 by 40 feet. My apologies. And very big, very tall. In an advanced state of disrepair. It's fairly dilapidated at this point. Our structural engineer saw it and said, we got to write a letter that this thing can't be used anymore. And it was to no one's surprise, really. When people walk around the site, we don't walk under it. And if it's a windy day, we stay well away from it. So without further ado, we can show some photos of it that really are going to do a better job than. So as you can see, it's.
It's amazing it hasn't blown over already.
Yeah, well, and parts have. So we've lost some roof panels.
No roof to catch the wind anymore.
Yeah, it served its purpose. It kept the sawdust dry for many years, but it's no longer a functional structure and is is actually pretty considerable hazard on site. So and with that, I'll hand it over to Joe, who has some good news on the cost to demolish it.
You're just gonna bulldoze.
Before you get too deep into that, how did we get to this state? We just ignored it for a long time, or?
So we did not ignore it, but it's a wooden structure. And it was built right around, I think, 1994 or in that era. And the wood is not treated, so Kyle thought that it was pressure-treated wood. When we went out there this afternoon, and we were actually specifically looking for evidence of creosote, which would be the dark black, we didn't see anything. And they, over time, they did try to repair some sections, but it just, I mean, we're not in that business of repairing something like this. With good storms, you would see portions of the aluminum roof kind of like go away. Initially, what happened is it would actually peel back. It's like it was almost like an orange. It would just peel back, and then with time, it would actually disappear. When it got really bad, by the time I came on site, our preference was not to work on it because I was worried about the safety of the staff, and we aren't experts at putting up these type of incredible buildings. So we were waiting for, we thought we would be able to replace it, actually during the Phase 2 upgrade, and that wasn't possible. Then we thought during the Phase 3 and 4 upgrade, so let's hope maybe at some point in the future.
And I guess I'm going to ask another question. I thought, since back in the early 2000s, that we thought the sawdust needed to be protected from the rain. If this isn't doing it, do we have sawdust just sitting out in the weather now?
So we do, and the result of that is the sawdust gets wet.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is there's about a $2,000 per month increase in the electrical cost for just a compost building. We have a separate meter out there, and there's about a $2,000 or $3,000 increase per month on the gas cost. So it's about a $5,000 increase per month on costs. The problem is if the sawdust gets too wet, then you make a very gloppy compost, and then it's very hard to screen the material and generate a material that's marketable or that people want to purchase.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It was covered. The sawdust was covered, was it not? It just wasn't under.
It's not covered right now. It's like a mountain.
Just a big pile of sawdust that's collecting snow and rain.
Yeah, it's huge. It's as high as the actual shed because we have it piled up. And it's right, I'm looking at the picture, so to the left of the picture is where the piles of sawdust are.
Okay.
You're more than welcome anytime to come to the plant site and take a look.
I should do that.
Yes.
I've seen, yeah.
Well, it's actually, it's a testament to how important it is that sawdust stay dry, that they use the structure for as long as they did. It makes life a lot harder for the operators. It's a lot more handling of messy material with it wet, so that's why they're kind of struggling right now without it.
You want a different set?
So spend a couple seconds going through what's included in the cost, and then I'll go over the cost to demo the shed. So the site work really is us excavating for the new structure, the new concrete structure. We've got cost in there for engineering. The part of the design is actually a delegated design, so we'd have to partner with an engineering firm to design the concrete structure for us. The concrete work is really the subcontractor costs, and then the Miss Metals is the cost of the new building, the pre-engineered metal building. On the demolition, we had offered a price of $40,000. That included a lot of asphalt saw cutting, a lot of demolition, a lot of getting rid of asphalt and other pieces of the sawdust shed that may not be required. So after talking to Sarita about what the scope would be if we're only doing the demolition, our number is $27,000. So $12,000 is disposal, $5,000 is to physically get the shed down, and then the rest of that is equipment costs and taking care of the concrete piers that are currently holding the existing structure. So without having to do all of that asphalt work, our number comes down from 40 to 27.
So the new building that you're talking about is going to be a concrete base and sidewalls, or what?
So there's
Like our transfer station?
There's
maybe,
one
or-
push wall at the back, and then we have a price in there for $44,000 to do a couple of return walls. But essentially, it's a prefabricated metal building on a concrete structure.
It's like our transfer station.
Yeah.
It's like the transfer station. It'd be similar to that, except there would be one side would be opening like garage doors, and then you'd be able to go in and on the building. But yeah, it'd be just like the transfer station. Cement, concrete walls, building structure on top.
Okay. Any other questions or comments at this time? Nancy? Murphy.
Thank you. So you were talking about the asphalt would not be removed? There's no reason to remove it?
Yeah, the only reason to remove the asphalt would be if we're building the new shed. So if we're strictly performing the demolition activities, we could remove that from the scope to bring the price down.
So that won't be absorbed someplace else, and
So,
whoever's building it?
When
then?
we build the new sawdust building, we would have to remove the asphalt prior to building it. So at this point, because we don't have the money right now we don't have the $949,000 to actually build a new sawdust building, the proposal is to just at least demolish what we have because it is a hazard. It is a safety hazard on site. And then hopefully as the project goes on, we might be able to find some money to be able to build the shed, and hopefully it's while the contractors are still on site.
So, you had a follow-up question? Go ahead.
I just was wondering, what will the difference in cost be if we don't do it now? I mean, understand the price is going down, but should we not do it and then have to have that cost later, will it be more?
So there are two aspects of it.
Sarita, may I?
Oh, sorry.
We have gentlemen who would be capable of ripping up the asphalt and getting rid of the asphalt and putting it on our asphalt pile. We do not have the technical expertise, not that our guys cannot do this, but the technical expertise to take that building down on the ground. But once doing some site work, we have the expertise that would be able to do that site work and ripping up the asphalt at that time if we wanted to. The other reason why we want to keep it is in case we want to move the pile.
So I was going to say that we want to actually move the pile to that area. And if you remove the asphalt, I mean,
Can't do it.
you can't do it as effectively. So that's the reason why we want to keep it.
Excellent, thank you.
Barbara?
Yeah, I guess you said that the shed was just about ready to fall down and fall apart. You know where I'm going with this. So just push a backhoe into it and let it fall down and then clean it up. Or is it all full of electrical, et cetera, that has to be dismantled as well? I mean, it just seems like a lot of money for a shed that's already halfway down.
So if you take a look at the pictures, if you look at the wooden members, you'll see that there are steel and metal plates there. So when you go to dispose of something, you actually have to remove all of those metal plates. If you're going to go and you're going to send the wood to like our recycling facility, you would have to cut it up into 3-foot sections. So there's a lot of work there. After you have the loader run into it and it falls down, you have to organize all of it. You have to pull everything together. You're going to have to remove the aluminum, which is what the roof is made of, put that into a separate bin. You're going to separate all the steel that's over there, put that into, your metal bin, and then you would get rid of your wood. You want to add anything to that?
I just want to say that doing it and doing it safely are two different things too. We have to comply with our safety standards, OSHA safety standards. So just knocking it down with a backhoe may be feasible, but it's not something we would do.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Are you done with, or you had more presentation?
What I'd like to say is that when Sarita came and we looked at the cost of close to $1 million for this building, while at this time, yes, it would be great to do it. However, by $60,000 a year for return on investment just wasn't there right now. Maybe with some of the other upgrades, once they're completed, it may make sense because the return on investment will be a lot sooner to it. It's a need. It's definitely a need, but looking at, like we talked about last night with the Phase 5 bomb when we had to take stuff out, there's more pressing needs at the plant at the time. And that's when we're looking at this again, there was more pressing needs at the plant at the time, like the chlorination building. So, it's something that will have to be done in the future. Just, we've known that we've spent, and the townspeople have graciously approved a lot of money. $30 million would be $32 million if this next bond goes through, plus another $2 million. So we're talking $34 million in the last 3 or 4 years for the plant. So, we were looking at this saying, okay, can this wait a little bit longer? And can we make it work? And we are making it work. So that's really one of the other reasons why we're not coming saying, hey, can we have the full $900,000? It's, let's get it down, let's get it safe. We'll have some workarounds for it. So,
Did our tipping building cost anything like this, or it was done a long time ago, but at the solid waste transfer, is that a comparable size or much bigger, much smaller?
to be honest
don't
with you,
know.
that is a great question. I don't have that answer.
Okay,
I hate to
don't worry
use,
about
I hate to use this, but believe it or not, that was before my time. I know I've been here a while, but that was a couple years before my time when we built that.
That
I
was
just came in at
around
the
the time I
end.
moved into town.
Yeah, I just came in at the end of it, when we were dealing with the capping of the
The
landfill itself.
landfill, yeah.
Lon, you might recall how much those buildings cost, the recycling center and the other building?
How much what?
The recycling center and the transfer center cost when we built it, do you recall how much they were?
I wouldn't hazard a guess.
So, yeah,
It was a while ago.
yeah.
Just one other comment. We were just talking about how this last article we voted on was gonna kind of clean up the plant and have everything set, and we weren't gonna be looking at any costs in the very near future, and now we're hearing that there's $1 million to rebuild this sawdust shed. That almost sounds like a conflict to me. How do I resolve that?
So I'm a chemical engineer by degree, and I think of process operations very differently than I think of the sawdust building. So my apologies for the mistake. But for me, it's a salt shed. And for me, all the other things, I mean, those are process operations. Those are the things that we have to do to make sure that we keep that water clean and that we're able to discharge, comply with our permits, and, you know, make clean water. So I segregate the two in very different categories. And to Paul's point, we're still making compost.
Right, so that's where I was hoping you were gonna go.
We're still making compost, and this shed is, was condemned in 2019. And we're still making compost. So, and we're making good quality product, and it's still extremely marketable. So we hope to be able to continue that, and as this project goes along, let's see what happens.
So the condition of the compost shed is reasonably good at this point? Do you see a extended life on that, or are we gonna be looking at maintaining that?
So the compost
Facility,
the
yeah.
compost facility, it's called in-vessel composting. So we have these rows and we put the compost through there. We did part of an upgrade as part of the phase 2. And the tail end of that we weren't able to complete, and that was to replace 6 large blowers outside and some ventilation and some panels. So it's actually in very decent shape. And I'll actually say this, we have 2 big pieces of equipment that are called agitators. And what they do is they take the material and they actually turn it as it goes down this building. And when BDP, which is the company that we purchased the agitators, came this past year to do a PM, they were doing, like a evaluation of them, and they were fixing various things. They actually said that those 2 agitators were in the best condition of any agitator they had seen. And given the age, they would have guessed that they were brand new. So we do a really good job of maintaining our equipment. And the compost facility is in good shape.
Okay. So we're able to make compost, we'd only be saving maybe $60,000 a year, so the ROI would be very low on trying to spend $1 million to build this shed at this point. There's probably some additional effort that our staff has to go through to deal with wet sawdust versus dry. But at this point, it's hard to justify another $1 million to build that, is the story I'm hearing. I'm just kind of trying to reiterate to make sure we all got the same story. But that shed needs to come down. And so we're thinking we need 27.
So I know we hadn't talked, and I forgot to mention it when we were downstairs, but would it be okay for me to propose the $27,000?
I would propose it as a not to exceed. We are looking at a couple different options still. But we know that this is a good number. This $27,000 is a good number not to exceed. And when I'm talking about other options, we're looking at internal options. If it's down on the ground, if somebody just comes in and knocks it down, can we get rid of it? Well, you know, and doing our cost analysis. And when we did our cost analysis, we have to look at that and seeing if it's with these new numbers, because we were looking at it versus 40 versus, now we'd have to look at it versus 27. And there's opportunity cost. I hate to say this. If Joe and his crew is knocking this down and getting rid of it for us, I don't have
You don't have to pull
trucking
people off
cost,
other
I don't have
things,
to,
yeah. Yep.
pay employees to get rid of it, so we gotta look at those opportunity costs as well, now that it's at $27,000, versus the 40, which,
Okay.
So I would respectfully like to request the council to approve $27,000 to withdraw it from the wastewater infrastructure CRF to cover the demolition of the sawdust shed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Andy Hunter, seconded by Barbara Healy to approve the request to withdraw $27,000 from the wastewater infrastructure. Not to exceed $27,000 from the wastewater infrastructure capital reserve fund for the demolition of the existing sawdust shed. Any other questions or comments? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes.
You never
7-0.
know if some miraculous infrastructure funds become available. Stranger things have happened.
that's right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
guys.
Joe,
Joe,
for-
Jim.
Thank you very
For
much.
sharing your evening with us.
We appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Sarita,
They've
thank
been
you
through
again.
worse,
Sarita.
I'm sure.
Thanks.
It won't get in our way.
No.
We don't even have any minutes.
Isn't that crazy? Well, we're not done. We have number 2 to do still.
Oh, that's
Right.
right, we have to go back, that's right.
Oh, man. I feel bad about that. That brings us to number 2 on our agenda that we moved down to the end here. Consideration of changes to Chapter A 198 of the Merrimack Town Code. This is a first reading. We tabled it at the February 24th Town Council meeting. Submitted by Town Manager Paul McCallie, the Town Council to consider the acceptance of recommended changes to Chapter A 198, the Administrative Code of the Merrimack Town Code, pursuant to Charter Article 5. Paul, I think you get to take this one away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, it's Charter Article 5, and Charter Article 5 basically says that the town manager, within 9 months of being hired, comes forward and with changes to the organizational structure of departments. Believe it or not, it's been a little more than 9 months already. I'm closing in on my first year anniversary, which is, seems like time's flying. But in doing it, I am not
It's
making.
because you're having so much fun,
Yes,
Paul.
exactly. Looking at this, I wasn't really making any changes to the organizational structure of the town and moving departments and things of that sort. But I want to take the opportunity to clean this document up. It was written back in 2007, amended in 10 and 2010. And some of the items that are here, most of the stuff is just really housekeeping items. For instance, on the first page, it used to say Human Resource Coordinator. Now we promote Director. The new job title is Director, so we changed that. The one change is I'm making a name change because it's not just cable anymore. It's Media Services. They're doing our social media. It's more a media service account. Finance Director used to be Finance Director and Assistant Town Manager. That is changed just to Finance Director. Assessor used to say Office Manager, Chief Assessor. Really, the person is an Administrative Assessor by job title. So we changed that job title. And as you go through the document, the next change is on page 5, once again correcting coordinator with director. And I tried to make, as you'll read some of these, I tried to make everything say the director shall, or if it's in a coordinator, the coordinator shall, and try to make this flow as much as possible with the same format. And then we had to add, because it never really talked about the information technology division, and the information technology coordinator, who appoints them. And as you'll see in every other one of these, it kind of talks about that person is appointed, and I just brought that language forward. I think that was more of a housekeeping issue. And then it's the coordinator's responsible for these things.
Not the division.
Not the
Yeah.
division. And then we talked about media services. I'm on page 6, I'm sorry. And we talked about the media services, and I just made sure that name just flowed through as media services throughout. And then I added on page 7 a couple of things to the job that they're responsible for. And that's what we added, is work in conjunction with the town manager for social media presence for the town to include but not limited to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Who knows, in another year there might be some newfangled thing. I could remember, way back when it was, before it was Facebook, it was another communication device. And yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, and then if you go down, I'd love to put a ski area in Merrimack. I just don't think it would be profitable. Maybe we could use one of the hills over by Chestnut Hill or the transfer station, but
Yeah.
we're not going to have a ski area in Merrimack, so there's no
Merrimack
need
Mountain.
to have it in here.
Maybe we could use the sawdust pile.
There you go. There you go. And then swimming pools. We used to have a swimming pool a long time ago in the town, but right now we don't have one, so I removed the swimming pools. It was at Wasserman Park.
Wasserman Park.
It was right across. Yes, yes, yeah. Right by the
Right
across the
right
street
where
from
the farm-
the garden. It used to be right there. And as a kid, I used to have swimming lessons, and you'd go in the pool, and then they take you down to the pond, Natticook Lake. They take you down to the lake. So you'd swim in the pool for a couple of, and then they say, okay, go down and swim in the lake, and that's how you knew you were a good swimmer or not a good swimmer. So
They let you go in the lake.
they let you go in the lake. So, and like I said, we just cleaned up a bunch of things throughout here. On page 8, underneath the finance department, assessing finance treasury, and then it talks about town clerk, tax collector in the title. So really, that's under there. Even though the town clerk, tax collector is an elected position, back in the town manager Hickey days, he moved that underneath finance to keep it all as financial. So we just had to add that bullet because it was never added there. The town clerk tax collector was listed underneath there, was just never added in that first bullet. So we just added it in that first bullet. And then on page 9, because the finance director is not the assistant town manager, we had to take out those responsibilities, remove them. Number 9 is removing the responsibilities. So as you can see, we tried our best to keep the document free-flowing. We did a couple of, in community development on page 12, these are the other ones. Community development doesn't develop the capital improvement plan pursuant to the charter. They assist in various government entities to develop it. It isn't coming from the community development department saying, I'm developing it. They assist in the implementation and the development, not the implementation so much, but the development of the program. And then coordinate the economic development activities on page 13. We used to have the Citizens Advisory Committee. We no longer do. So we had to change that around. They coordinate the economic development activities of the town. And as you go through, just on page 15, we haven't had a Parks and Maintenance Division since 2009, 2010. So when the foreman retired, it's always been absorbed in the Highway Division. I said, just take it out. We don't need to mention it anymore. We haven't had it in a long time. If we ever decide to bring that back, then we'd make the change. And the rest of it is basically just formatting and cleanup. We did a lot of that with formatting and cleanup throughout the rest of the document, so those were the highlighted changes, the big changes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anybody on the council? Nancy?
Thank you. I just have a question. I know I've raised this in the past. Just one of the questions around the health officer, health officials on page 21. These functions, were these determined just by the town, or do these reflect any of the state roles and responsibilities for the health officer? And the reason I bring this up is because just in my work with PFAS over the last 6 years, we've discovered a lot that often the town manager was never notified of certain things that were happening related to our community, but the health officer of the town was. Mail we would find that was delivered to the town health officer. We wondered why, and because our understanding was it was more related to health code violations and that kind of stuff, and we were told that that's not the case. And then when we looked into the role of the health officer in the state, from the way our legislature is moving toward affording health officers for each community across the state more responsibility and oversight of things that impact towns. For us, like our PFAS situation, we have contaminated water in our town. And that's something that I think would be really important, since I'm sure they're probably still getting mail around this issue, and it's certainly an issue that potentially can have impact on public health. I just would like, to see something that would, not preclude this person from having some input or responsibility or direct involvement with actually health, things that might impact health for a town. And I'm not sure that I see that. And that's why I was confused. Is this like, this is our town? Did the town decide that these are the roles and responsibilities, or, because I'm not sure it's the same as the state.
I think it was probably pre-existing for quite a while. It's probably not been modified.
No, these were developed with our health officer over the number of years.
Right.
This is their responsibilities that they are to do, and it's driven by, a lot of it is the authority, the health officer or the deputy health officer, in consultation with the commissioner of the Department of Health and Human Services. They are serves as the Board of Health. So we do take some responsibilities, like restaurants and those kind of deals where they will go in and do it. We're allowed to do that with our health officer. So there are some, a joint collaboration with the state that we take on some of their responsibilities.
Yeah, because the town doesn't have to have a health officer.
No, we do not.
It's the state's obligation, but they would never come down, so.
And basically it was for the restaurant inspections.
Yep.
Because we do restaurant inspections a lot more frequently than what we'd see with the state. And if the health officer is getting this information, they report to the fire chief. They should be bringing that to the fire chief, and the fire chief reports to me, and he should be bringing it up the chain of command that way with the communications and things. But like Finley has said, Councilor Rothaus has said, we do not have to have a health officer in this town. We have elected to have one because of the size of our community. And if we don't have a health officer, then it does fall back on the state.
Barbara?
I'm just wondering, can we validate in your one-on-ones with the fire chief if they're seeing any of that mail coming in?
I can put it up on the next time I talk to him,
Yeah.
which we talk daily, so I'll ask him.
Just so that we're clear about what that interface is, because I know, remember when even with Eileen was here, it was always an issue, like who's getting the mail?
I have to say that for the most part, if it's coming from the commissioners of the DHHS or DES, they are including the town manager on the email loop now.
Okay, good.
We because I've been getting a lot of email as well,
Yeah.
when they talk about some of this stuff. I don't get everything, but I do get a lot of it. So, but I will make that I'll tell him that, he needs to make sure that
Reiteration.
if we have, you know, Rick or, sorry, the building official or the health officer, building health officer or our health officer, if they're getting any emails, to make sure that they are forwarding them along.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other comments on changes to A198? What? No. No? Okay,
Motion?
sure.
Well, someone, I just want to get it done.
This is,
Okay.
I was just
Move-
gonna say, this is our first reading, needs to go to a public hearing.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I move to, so it's not to accept, it's to move this to the first public hearing then.
To a
Public
public
hearing.
hearing, which is our second hearing.
So moved.
Seconded by Nancy Murphy. Any other comments or thoughts? I appreciate the work you've done on this, Paul. You've gone through and done a lot of work to clean up stuff that's probably been around for 20 years. But, so we'll move it forward.
I want to thank Sharon Marunich because I dropped it on her desk after I did this. And make sure I got all the formatting right, please.
If there's no other comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. And that was the last item on our agenda, which brings us, not the last item, excuse me, brings us to the last item under old business, new business. We have no new business tonight. Minutes, we have no minutes for tonight. Comments from the press, comments from the public, comments from the town council. Seeing none.
Seeing none, I make a motion, we adjourn.
See that?
Motion to adjourn
That
by
is your
Lon Wood,
job.
seconded by Barbara Healy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. Good night, Merrimack.